when I was 21, 22, I decided to just randomly coach a 5th and 6th grade girls basketball team. There is no reason why I would want to do that, but I just did. I knew I could play basketball, so I wanted to share that gift. So I did. And then later when my daughter got older and she's in 5th grade, we organized a basketball team for her. And then when they hit 9th grade, one of the players on the team came back running to me and hugged me and goes, "Thank you. You guys were so wonderful." I'm like, and then all of a sudden the pieces started to fall together. I'm like, wait a minute. I have a gift. It's not necessarily that I know the X's and O's perfectly. The gift is the ability to communicate and help these kids push farther. And I wasn't a mean coach, but I wasn't a sweetheart coach either. Right. I mean, I have a look that they know, it's time.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for another episode of At Home with Emily, a podcast about creating a life you love. I'm your host, Emily Wood, and I'm so excited for today because I have come across one of my favorite entrepreneurs so far, Lisa Tinkler, owner of Redline Athletics and mentor to many, coach, athletes. I mean, the list goes on. But what I love about your story, Lisa, and that we want to share with our listeners today is just kind of how you started late. You describe it in terms of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Emily, for inviting me. And those were very nice words to say to me. But anyway, because I started late, I'm probably really embarrassed by those comments. But I call myself the late bloomer. And I didn't even finish college or my golf career in college until I was 39, 40 years old. So it just took me that long to figure out what I was best at. I mean, I think I knew, but those doors didn't open until I was a little bit later.
Yeah, but isn't it funny how we box ourselves and we say, well, my degree's in this, or this is what I know how to do, or this is what I've done, but there could be something completely different out there for you.
Exactly, and I think sometimes, I don't know if we're just not exposing kids to the varieties that they can do, in life.
Right.
If that's part of it, or if it's just human nature. I mean, we think we're in a direction. I want to be a lawyer. And yeah, I can have a gift of gab, of course, but it really wouldn't have fit me. I would have burned out rapidly in something like that. I'm an active person and I love sports, and it just always had to be something in sports, but I didn't know that. And I was anti being a teacher, but ultimately by nature I'm a coach. I coach my kids, I coach my mom now. I mean, I just coach everybody. Unfortunately, they're like, quit coaching me.
Well, you've been coaching me since I came across you, and I love it. I'm like, yes, I need coaching.
No,
but the reason that I reached out to you is because I was thinking of this idea for a little mini series of women who pivot, or business leaders who pivot, or entrepreneurs. Like, how did you get there? How did you make that leap? And what I loved about your story is that you didn't set out to be an entrepreneur. You were in a completely different line of work. Right. And tell us about that. And I know, and then we'll talk about how it happened. So what were you doing prior to starting your own business?
Okay. I was coaching Drury women's golf at the time. I had come back to Drury. I actually got to start the women's golf program in 2003. And left for a short time in 2012 to go start up the program for Loyola University in New Orleans. So that was 2 years of my life. Then I came back, and the coach that had replaced me decided to leave. So I went back to Drury for another 3 years. And in the course, I'm always trying to find a way to train their bodies for a lifetime of golf. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to be the coach that got everything out of them and then they left and their back was broken basically because they had played too much, or their wrist hurt, or their shoulders wouldn't function anymore. Golf's a lifetime sport, and I didn't want to take that away from them. So I would always investigate ways to improve their bodies. And at that time I was also doing Talking Women's Sports, which was a radio show. And don't ask me how I stumble into stuff like this, but we would bring on people that would talk about, overuse injuries. Mm-hmm. And, I just described golf's one of those. So you've got to train around from that. And that became my overlapping desire, is to find ways to get my athletes more trained physically besides the mental side so that they could go on forever. So that exploration led me to thinking, well, I could start my own indoor practice facility, and we could add weights, and we could add this.
And you were thinking for your girls.
Right, just for my team. And as I started thinking about that, and we owned some land, I was thinking I could throw up a barn. I had it named The Farm, and we were going to nurture and culture and cultivate and seed and all this kind of plant this seed. It was getting silly. Not really. But I got to the point, I thought, well, I could bring in basketball. We could bring in a hoop. We could bring in cages for baseball. My son-in-law, who teaches hitting, he could teach there. And it just blew up. And I thought,
but it was on your mind all the time, right? And this is what you started thinking
I started
about.
actually writing it down.
Yes.
Yeah. And my strength when I was tested in Strength Quest, some people know what that is, was ideation. But the problem with someone that comes up with ideas, it's the follow through. We're not always good at the follow through. We get great ideas, and then we watch 10 years later when that idea happens for someone else. And so I finally said, I got to quit that. I've got to actually do something. And so I just simply researched franchises that, if there was a franchise out there for sports training for youth. And lo and behold, I stumbled across about 3. 2 fit into the mold that I could fit into. I really ended up with the Redline because I liked the philosophy behind it. It wasn't just, let's just exercise and work out. Let's build the brain. Let's build the character. Let's dive a little bit deeper than just that part. And let's keep it all just about the kids for the most part.
Other aspects other than the physical.
Right.
And you do hear about these star kid athletes who start getting burned out at 11 or 12. And it's not even always because, we talk about the excess of training.
Right.
But it's mental, isn't it?
It is. In fact, we had talked with a guy yesterday for mental, and just so we can refer them. We're not going to bring somebody on staff just for mental, though my staff is all former athletes. So
right. They relate.
They relate. But that way, if a kid is really struggling to get to the next level and something's holding them back and it's not the physical side, then, hey, here's someplace you can go. Let's go talk with this gentleman and get to be smarter. And as a golfer, I know the mental side is a huge part of the game. But the other issues, like parents have started, a kid says, I want to play baseball, and they're 8 years old. And so then they throw everything into just baseball. And at the same time, those kids are getting, their arms are getting, they're right. If they're right-handed, they're building their arms beautifully, right? But then their left side's just getting weaker and weaker as the right side gets stronger in comparison. So then you don't have any support system for the body on the opposite side. So that's part of the golf issue also, or just really every sport. If you're going to focus on just one sport, you've got to train that body to be a complete athlete. So when you play multiple sports, that helps you to train the whole body to an extent. There may be some missing areas, but for the most part, you're going to be a much sturdier, longer-term athlete. Plus, then you can transition to other sports.
So was it intimidating for you when you decided to start the process of your own business?
Yes, scary, scary, scary.
What were those feelings like?
What am I doing? Can I really do this? I can do this. It just went back and forth. And then it came down to, you just have to take a step. You just have to, or you're always that person coming up with a great idea. That's it. That's all you have to offer. And it's okay.
So what were the costs for you in leaving what you knew and coming out as an entrepreneur like that?
Well, I tried to continue to coach, because it's a part-time gig always at Drury University.
Yes.
Wish they'd change that. But anyway.
A lot of coaching positions are that, aren't they?
They are, and that one is one for sure, even though it is a fall and a spring season. So it got very difficult. And I figured that out after the first year trying to do both. I luckily landed across a volunteer assistant that I thought was amazing. She eventually became the head coach. So it worked out, but that meant I left coaching in that respect.
And that was probably hard.
It was at the time, maybe not. There's just so much on my plate, I didn't think about it. Now I look back and and then I helped her out a couple times afterwards, and it was really fun just to be out there on the golf course with the girls. And when they have a successful shot, it's never because of me, but if I help them think through a shot and it gives them success, it's just so gratifying. They have to still pull it off, so it's not really me. It's just them not being able to see the whole picture.
So for all of us listening to you, we're thinking, what would she have to be afraid of? She's this amazing coach. She's obviously an idea person. She clearly has a business mind. But what were the voices in your mind that were
This is a
telling
lot of
you?
money.
Okay, so starting with the finances.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's a lot of money, and you have to feel that this is it. This is it's going to make it. It's going to be fine. And, and I got into a franchise that wasn't really proven yet. So that part was even scary. And, I even took the leap to buy several licenses so that I could protect not just my area, but expand or sell those licenses to others.
And you have expanded.
Yes, I have. I have one in Lenexa, Kansas now. So had a wonderful location if you're familiar with the area, it's 435 and I-35. So it's fantastic for the community. I've had some license sell to others. We have in Tulsa. We have one going in Fayetteville that'll open in early November. We have one in Liberty, Missouri, which is a real hotbed right now for athletics, and an area that wasn't served for what we offer, which is really awesome. I had one in Lee Summit. I did close those doors. Sometimes you have to make that decision of, where do you want your money to, if it's not making it, do you want to keep giving it more money? And sometimes you just have to say, no, it's not.
And so over the course of how many years have you grown this quickly?
I started 6 years ago, almost. We opened the door here 6 years ago, September. And I put one in Lee Summit in 2019. We opened our doors in December, and COVID came along in February. And I did use the excuse of COVID for a very long time. I am tired of using excuses, but that is something I did do. And then in 2023, I opened Lenexa. So it hasn't been open that long, a little over a year.
And so what would you say to the person who's checking out this podcast and listening to Lisa and thinking, that's just a lot? And, to me, it is always safer to stay where you are.
Yeah.
Now, there are times when you're forced out of where you are.
Right.
Whether it be your circumstances or you get laid off or your company closes or, you find where you're at that intersection.
Right.
But sometimes you can just keep trekking along for 10, 20, 30 years until you decide to retire.
Right.
But maybe you have that idea or you have that thought. What would you say to that person in terms of...
it sounds like a lot happened in 6 years.
It does.
But
it's amazing.
It didn't happen overnight. I mean, there were, once you start to build, there's a lot of days where nothing's going on. Wow. You just have to use your instincts. Is this the right time? Is this what needs to happen? As I referenced, it's a newer, franchise. So there's a lot of changes happening in marketing and everything like that. So it got me excited to try another location. I chose very poorly on that one in Lee Summit. The location itself was really poor. I don't think Lee Summit's a bad location, but where I was located was a very poor location. I thought at the time that wouldn't matter because of MapQuest and Google and all that, but I think people still need to be able to drive by and see some things there. To me, it seems like it's been years and years and years since I've been involved in this. Even though I look back, it's like, no, it's just 6. But you just start with one. I mean, I think there are some things that you have to be careful. You don't want to build too quickly. And I think the Lee Summit was another mistake there. It'd only been a year since I'd opened the one here. And I wanted to
Which was doing very well.
Right. And it's doing very well, and it's really gratifying because, I get to watch the kids here. I live here. I get to watch the kids, and I know them go and get stronger. We're on our second one coming back to us and wanting to be a trainer. So that's like, well, obviously we're doing something right if they want to come work for us then after they used to work out with us. I think had I stayed a little bit slower when it came to Lee Summit, we probably would still be open today. Of course, it would have come after COVID and would have been a lot easier. It's difficult to wrap my head around some of these things, but
well, you're not really a stop and think about things for a long time type of person.
And that's probably not a good thing, actually. I think they call that impulsiveness. I think
But also, too, it has what has made you successful. The first thing that you thought of was, well, I trust my instincts.
Yeah.
And I do think that is hard for some of us to do.
It is, and my instincts are going to fail sometimes.
Yes.
As it did with Lee Summit. And another reason why I wanted to open Lee Summit, I wanted to then eventually sell it. Get the door open so somebody can come in and buy it from me. Well, that door kind of, like I said, timing was wrong for Lee Summit. Lenexa will be different. I want others to own these. As a regional developer, I'm still part of the picture once they do purchase them. So it's fun in that respect. I'm still touching those doors, but I would really love to just focus on Springfield. It has led me back to wanting to be not traveling as much to these different areas and staying here in town and focusing on these kiddos and the staff that I have. The staff develops wonderfully.
So for you as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of plates in the air at all times. And as you've alluded to, some things go great and some things don't.
Right.
So what would you say is it that drives you on a daily basis?
The kids. I know that sounds so crazy, but my dream is to make Southwest Missouri kids the most athletic kids there are in the whole state of Missouri, and regionally if I could, where people are like, this sounds kind of corny probably, where people are like, well, okay, for instance, Webb City. People move to Webb City for their kid to play football, right? I want people to move to Southwest Missouri to play sports here because it wouldn't matter which school they go to. They're all going to be strong. And you've got perfect examples of the small schools that have grown, the republics that's now growing larger and larger because the school system's good, the athletics are good. I know it probably sounds corny to think the athletics drive, but it does drive. It drives kids to colleges. They want to go to the school with these most successful. Even if they'd never played sports before, they know it's going to be more fun in those schools.
It's true.
So it is a driving force in our community. The Olympics shows that it is a driving force across the world. People fled to soccer games. It's not. We're not trying to alienate anybody. It's a visual thing that people like to participate in, whether they do it themselves physically or just watch. So athletics, to me, every day I get up, I want those kids to be the very best they can possibly be. And the hardest part is getting parents to understand that it is not going to 100 games a year that makes them the very best at the age of 8, 9, and 10. They need to take a pause. They need to come in, work out, get a regimen and a dedication to their body, just like the Patrick Mahomes in the world. He didn't get there just because he could throw a football. He got there because of the hard work he puts in off the field. And that's the direction. If I could get that message out to parents, and I don't care, go to anybody, just get those kids physically trained. Make them a whole athlete, not just a baseball player.
So when you say the kids, what you really mean is you have a passion.
Yes, that would be it.
And what you do is your passion.
Yes.
So we've talked about that a little bit, you and I. Just how do you know what your passion is? Is it a matter of what you think about? Is it a matter of what you're good at? How do you go and explore that? Or how do you come to the realization of this is what I love and maybe I can make a career out of this?
You might have to think back in your past. If you get old like me and you decide to do something late in life. When I was 21, 22, I decided to just randomly coach a 5th and 6th grade girls basketball team. There is no reason why I would want to do that, but I just did. I knew I could play basketball, so I wanted to share that gift. So I did. And then later when my daughter got older and she's in 5th grade, we organized a basketball team for her. And then when they hit 9th grade, one of the players on the team came back running to me and hugged me and goes, "Thank you, you guys were so wonderful." I'm like, and then all of a sudden the pieces started to fall together. I'm like, wait a minute. I have a gift. It's not necessarily that I know the X's and O's perfectly. The gift is the ability to communicate and help these kids push farther. And I wasn't a mean coach, but I wasn't a sweetheart coach either.
Right.
I mean, I have a look that they know, it's time. Let's stop doing what we're doing. We got to focus on what we're doing.
But you had a feeling of, this is natural for me.
Yeah.
I'm in my lane right now.
Right. And I think that's what passion is. It just flows. It comes out of you and you don't even realize it, but you have to be aware. And until you have maybe instances like I did, examples that made me realize, wait a minute, this is my direction. But you got to pay attention. Pay attention to what is going on for you, which is self-awareness, right?
What does that look like?
Wow, I've never been asked that in that way. I think it's almost a aha, right? But
I'm not
self-awareness
happy
is
doing
daily.
this could be an aha.
You could
I
start
hate
there.
going into work
Right.
every day.
Yeah, that could be the first aha. Then you sit there and you think back, where was I not ever
What did I
unhappy?
like?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
What was I good at?
Right. Now, here's the complication, though. Like golf, luckily, as a coach, it didn't take the golfer from me. I could still play. I didn't lose in my amateur status, unless I chose to. I could still play the game. So I didn't have to lose that passion that I had. So, because you have to be careful. Sometimes you take your hobby and make it into a job, then it takes your hobby away from you. Luckily, I was able to compartmentalize that. So I do caution people, don't take your most favorite thing that you like to do that is your relaxation and make it your job. You have to look a little bit deeper than that. So there might be an aspect in that. And I know I'm sounding very vague because I can't, there's not an example, but, an artist, don't take away the joy of just painting something, but go find something that relates to it and doesn't make that painting in the afternoon your job. Find an avenue that makes it. Maybe it's just opening up a new paint store. I mean, we lost National Avenue, I don't even know what it was called, that art place. And we've lost that. Maybe it's opening up something like that.
But don't you even feel like it's not even one specific thing? For you, it sounds black and white because you're such a great coach and you're a good athlete, and so let's train other athletes. But I think too, like I look at myself, I'm a creative. There are so many ways I can take that.
Right.
The podcast, it's something fun that I do. I design homes. I used to be a full-time journalist. I'm a writer. There's just so many different ways that I've had to open my mind to how do I use. Same thing. I am a visionary also. That works extremely well when it comes to remodeling a home or, something along those lines. And so I think for me, and obviously I don't have as much experience as an entrepreneur as you, but for me, setting out on my own, it was also one of those things that I can't remember that there was a certain day or time that I decided I'm going to do it. It just, the opportunity started coming. I enjoyed it. I was good at it. And all of a sudden, here was a little business.
Right. You woke up. That was your self-awareness.
That's a good way to put it.
You just like, wait a minute, this is
Yes.
something. And I'm not going to dread every day with it. And you have to always remember back, like if I'm having a bad day or, I looked at the books, I'm like, oh, what am I doing? I just walk back in the gym and I see a kid sweating and running hard. And
I love that.
And, one of the coaches cheering him on. I'm like, okay, I remember why I'm doing this.
This is why I'm doing
Exactly.
this.
So you'd go look at, okay, I got to go look at that last project I did. It was so wonderful. I really, so you just
Not in the
driving
middle of
by-
it, just at the end.
Yeah, right. Just driving by might be enough to say, okay, wait a minute, I remember why I'm doing this.
I can do this.
You do have to give yourself reminders. Why are you doing this?
I think the why is really important. And for me, it's beyond my work. It's my family. So I came from an industry where you either work 2 p.m. until 11 o'clock at night and never see your kids. I mean, that's the main shift. There's a couple other shifts, but that wasn't for me.
Right.
Because what I wanted to do changed so quickly once my boys came along. And now I'm in control.
Right.
And I will say, with all the stress that comes with running your own business, you are ultimately controlling your path and your journey. And I think that's one of the biggest differences from working for someone else.
I agree. I do think there are some people that won't be able to take that leap. My husband is even one of those. He prefers that not strict guidance, but that feeling that dedication to that person and not just to himself.
There's also a clock in, clock out on some jobs.
Yeah, exactly. You have to really know if you are capable, and I don't know if there's a way to find that out. I mean, I'm sure there is, but some people just aren't going to be able to do it. And it's okay. It really is. But, be the very best that you are in what you're doing, and recreate that job maybe, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Everything you say makes sense.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know if we just have the same personality type, but everything Lisa says, I seem to identify with.
Major guru here.
So we're making it sound great. And I think that might be a good place to kind of wrap up this episode. But I do want to revisit with you, if you don't mind,
Sure.
and go back into some of the challenges that you were alluding to and talk about that, because there are obviously, the numbers and all of the things that we all face as small business owners. Right. But it is an emotional journey, don't you think?
Oh, yes. Very emotional.
So I think we need to hit on some of that in our second episode. I mean, obviously, failure is going to be there at some point, even if it's not there right out the gate. How do you overcome that? And just the many things that come your way.
Right.
So let's plan on a second
Okay.
conversation on that. And thank you so much for listening to At Home with Emily, a podcast about creating a life you love. If you're watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe so you can be notified of our next episode drop. We are dropping them every Wednesday, always something new and different. Next time, of course, Lisa will be back with us talking about some of those challenges that we face when we move into the unknown and start something new. Please be sure to follow us on social, aroundtheozarks.com. You can also sign up for a newsletter and learn about all the podcasts that we do here at Around the Ozarks. See you next time.